My very first question will go to Mrs. Titi. So I'm going to say, so how are African legal systems adapting to the rapid pace of technological change, and particularly in areas as disruptive as artificial intelligence and blockchain?
Let me start also by saying thank you for the invitation. Thank you to the organizers for putting this together. I think we're definitely moving forward. We're definitely trying to catch up, play catch up, like you said. We have different laws now that address that. We have the NDPR, we have the NIDTA, we have Cyber Crimes Act. We have so many laws actually that already try to address, AI, that try to address blockchain technology and all that. But the issues, I think, it's that it's a rapidly evolving space. Like you said, you have a law that maybe came out in 2023. You know that technology changes every day. It comes out so much faster. So these laws, even though they are trying in this space to address these things, they're trying to put regulations in place, to manage how data is handled, to protect people's privacies, to make sure that we're not, misusing these technologies. But yes, it's not doing enough to catch up. There's a lag in the regulatory system. There definitely is. We are trying to catch up. Yes.
And I think it's important because I also know the level of work that goes into making a law, like a basic law. For those of us who are familiar with parliamentary procedure, first reading, second reading, and sometimes there's a lot of politics involved to even get it passed and get it assented by the governor or the president. Do you think those are also like things that contribute to the slow pace and also the conservative nature of the legal profession?
Well, definitely. But that's why it needs to be decentralized. We need to make sure that we're bringing in other people, stakeholders, to help us with these things. Back when I went to school, tech law was not a thing. And you find out that a lot of people that are in place to make these regulations and these policies now don't have that background either. These are people that are my seniors, in fact. So how do they understand, or how do they regulate a technology they don't even understand? You get what I'm saying? So we need to bring in people that are in this sphere. We need to, thank God that now in school, tech law is now a thing. So lawyers are getting trained on this. But people that are already in the regulatory body, they need to have that training in this tech, in tech law. They need to be exposed to these things, because that's how it will come out in the regulations that they create. They have to have that understanding.
Okay, thank you very much. So my next question will go to Nonso. You are the data protection and data privacy experts on this panel. But just to clear the air, because I don't want to take it for granted that every single person knows what, I feel like everyone has an idea of what data privacy is, but could you, as the expert, could you break down what's the relationship between data privacy, data protection, and cybersecurity?
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the question. And then before I answer the question, I want to say something. There's something Titi said when she was making reference to the fast-growing space of technology and how law cannot be able to meet up with some of this fast-growing pace. And it just threw my mind back when I was trying to get into the tech space as a lawyer. I actually had to go for some trainings, get some certifications. I went to some hubs. I went to talk to some tech people, startup owners. I didn't just want to read the law that regulates them. I wanted to know how it operates, because that's the only way I can be able to appreciate that law and see how the law works for them. So getting stakeholders involved is very, very important. Then as regarding the issue of data protection, data privacy, and cybersecurity, I've been to so many gatherings where these three terms are used interchangeably. But I'm here to give you a basic understanding about it. Data privacy, data protection, cybersecurity are different entities on their own, but they are interconnected. So people tend to use them somehow, like, oh, cybersecurity has to do with data privacy, it has to do with data protection. But I'm here to tell you that they are different entities. Now, data privacy is your right as a person, as a citizen of Nigeria. You have a right to privacy. It's enshrined in the Constitution. That is data privacy. Your right to control the kind of personal information that you're giving out and who you're giving that information out to and what that person is using that information to do. So you don't just say, okay, for example, all of us are here. We all use WhatsApp. Am I correct? If you can we don't all use WhatsApp, but okay, fine. Most of us use WhatsApp. If you can check your WhatsApp, you check your settings. When you go to your settings as I'm talking to you, you can actually be doing that. When you go to your settings on your WhatsApp, scroll down, you see where they wrote privacy. When you open that particular clock, you see a lot of things that are stated there. What is WhatsApp trying to do? They are trying to get your consent. They are trying to tell you that, see, we know you have a right to privacy, so we want to tell you that these are what we need from you. Are you okay with it so you can be able to use our application? Then when you talk about data protections are mechanisms, rules, regulation, like the NDPA, like the GAID, like the GDPR in Europe, that organizations put in place that make use of data. All the technical organizations they do to make sure that your data is protected, that is data protection. But data privacy is your right. Then when we talk about cybersecurity, cybersecurity has to do with building systems, secured systems, that will enable your privacy to be secured. So what I say is this. I said, a good cybersecurity will enable data protection, and a good data protection will in turn create a culture for privacy in our society. So when you're talking about the three terms, please just understand that they are intertwined somehow, but they are not the same. Thank you.
Okay, so since we're still talking about data privacy, thank you for that distinction. So essentially, what rights do individuals have over their personal data? Could you just speak to that in like 30 seconds?
So under the NDPA, that's the Nigerian Data Protection Act, from section 34 to 38, there are some rights that are outlined there that you as a citizen has over your data. I will not want to bore you with what is inside it, but I want to show you a basic clip of what it means. For example, all of us in this hall, the attendees most especially, we sent in our personal information to the organizers of this event. And when I say personal information, I mean your name, your phone number, your email address. Am I correct? Am I correct? Now, when you send those information, you have a right to ask them, what are this information used for? What does the organizers of this event want to use this information to do? Okay, my name, you need my name to identify me. I can see my picture on my tag. My picture is used to identify me. Am I correct? I can see my email, okay, so that I can be able to send me an update on what is going on before the event. Do you necessarily need my phone number for this kind of event? Have we asked ourselves that question? There are certain information, when people ask them from you, you need to ask them, what are you using them for? Then when they collect the information from you, you need to still ask them, for how long will you retain that information? Because you have a right to irration. You have a right to know that, okay, at this particular point in time, we have this information, and within the period of 3 months or 4 months, this information will be deleted from our system. You have that right. You have the right also to withdraw your consent and tell them that, see, I don't want to give you this information because you're not giving me cogent reason why I should give you this information. For every information you give out as a data citizen, or we call it data subject, but I don't like using the word subject, as a data subject, you need to ask the person asking for that information, what do you want to use my information for? That's your right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that's very profound because looking back, I just think about how many times I've had to fill certain forms. Let's say I'm just trying to buy bread, for instance, and I'm seeing a form that is asking me for my BVN, my NIN, like things that are not necessary for that particular purpose. And I don't think that, and sometimes it's even harder online when you're trying to like progress to, let's say, register for something and it's marked as asterisk, and if you don't fill in that thing, you can't even make progress from that area. So I think this is very, very, very profound. But I know that the more we have advocacy and increased awareness, because a lot of these organizations that are asking for this data don't actually know that they are breaching your data rights. But I think with the more awareness that we have, we can find a way to sort that out. So thank you very much for that. Princess, so we've talked about legal frameworks. We've talked about, she's mentioned briefly from a data protection perspective, she's talked about the NDPA, and she's also mentioned the cybersecurity laws. What specific frameworks, what specific legal frameworks do you think we need to support the growth of the digital economy and essentially protect digital rights in Africa? Not just Nigeria, but Africa as a whole.
Thank you very much for that question. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you. The world as we know it is gone. We are in a new era. And I'm sure that the fact that you're here goes to show that, to a large extent, you already know this. I think this is the conversation that we need to have. We need to keep having across board in the legal space. Because now we need to reevaluate how we make our laws. What are the frameworks that we have in place? I would want to ask, when was the last time you signed an e-signature? In the last 10 days, I'm sure you have signed one form or something at work. We need to look at laws that protect e-signature validities, digital contracts, consumer protection, like you spoke about. You're giving your information out. Do you know what it's being used for? Every other day, we are asked about our identity online. Almost everything that you want to fill, they're asking you questions. So where are you from? What's your mother's maiden name? These are frameworks that we need to put in place. It's not just the big conversations, but even the tiny things. Because trade, civic interaction as we know it, all of those things have changed. If you have a business, most of your customers are probably online. In this conference, you can see so many sectors here. It means every sector is impacted. And that means that our frameworks need to follow the nature of the problems that we are facing today. And that's just one. We also need to build frameworks. We need to build frameworks around how these laws are made. Because it's one thing to say, okay, this country is doing that or that country is doing that. But how about here in Nigeria? How about here in Africa? Do these laws align with our own customs? Are they based on principles that we actually agree with? Because if you don't do that, we will not adapt it. You know how stubborn we can be as Africans. So we need to build frameworks that mirror our cultures. And that's another thing, or one more thing rather, that we have to add to that conversation is collaboration. As a continent, we need to have regional collaborations. Because the internet is a very big world. If I'm talking to someone today, the person that built your app might not be a Nigerian. The person that you are buying from might not be an African even. So there has to be cross-communication. We have to think about how we can transcend the shores of our own borders and ensure that if you break the law here, the other country, how does the breach, how is it settled? So I think that these are three ways or three frameworks that we need to solidify as a community, as a country, and as a continent to help us promote digital transformations in our continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. When talking about, it's a good place to clap. It's a good place to clap. When talking about regional frameworks, I think one thing that just came to mind is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And I know that as in one of the protocols, I can't remember the specific one, but I know that there's a conversation around technology and essentially putting systems in place that ensures exchange of technology, not just movement of goods, creating a borderless Africa, but also in terms of services as well. Technological services are not off the table. So I think that's that's a very profound point that you've raised. My only concern is usually around the jurisdictional points. You know, African countries have different heritage. So the Francophone countries are most generally civil law countries, while the Anglophone countries are generally common law countries, imitating the British legal system in terms of their resolutions of disputes, right? So in just 30 seconds, considering that we are really pressed by time, what do you think that, what role do you think these international legal standards and collaboration, because you talked about collaborations, what role do you think it can play in shaping technological law, or technology, law and policy on the continent?
Technical assistance, capacity building. When we have roundtable conversations like this, and I don't even think it's just the government, right? The big tech companies, the people that are leading the different sectors, when we sit down and have these conversations, what happens is that for maybe developing countries like some countries,
are you afraid to say Nigeria?
we are more than developing. Anyway, as I was saying, when we have conversations with these big players, first of all, some of these countries have gone way ahead of us. Some countries are ahead of others. So if you have done something, when there is a roundtable conversation, you can then say, oh, we have tried this and it worked. Or we tried this and it did not work. Or we hear things like, oh, we don't have the technical know-how. We don't have the experts to do these things. Some of these countries have. And what you can see is trainings can come in. Help can come in, facilities can come in. So when we have these roundtable regional conversations, it does a lot to carry everybody along. Because I tell you the truth, one person cannot make it work. One country will not make it work. It is an error. For it to actually work, we all have to move along, maybe not necessarily at the same pace, but we have to move along nonetheless. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think another thing that comes to mind, so I just remembered at the last year's edition of the Port Harcourt Tech Expo, we had Mr. Davidson Oturu. For those who don't know, Mr. Davidson Oturu led the team at the National Assembly that came up with what we now have as the Nigerian Startup Act. I think it's also important that you mentioned something about understanding our own sensitivity, our own peculiarity as a people, as a continent. Because with due respect to our parliamentarians, most of the time, a lot of laws that we have are copy and paste. Right? A lot of the laws we have, like, they'll just check what works in Singapore, and before you know it, the National Assembly has come up with a very brilliant bill. And you wonder, the person who is proposing this bill does not have the technical competence to understand that space. So I think it's important, even in this room, and that's why it's important to have association and advocacy groups, so that when the conversations around making law and policy around your area of tech is being brought up, you can be in the conversation and you can even be a consultant. You can help in drafting the policies. I don't think somebody who is not a data protection or data privacy expert, I don't see any reason why that person should be part of putting together laws for that sector. So it's important that whether it's agri-tech or med-tech, whatever type of tech you do, push the advocacy so that when the conversations around making recommendations to the National Assembly come up, you can be in the middle of that conversation and you can be a focal point to be referred to. Thank you very much for that.
Can I add something to that? You know, it's a very important point that you just made, because we can't wholly adopt these laws. You have to look at our own realities. You have to look at our own social, political, issues here. When you say maybe you take an AI that was designed outside the country, you bring it here, we don't look like them, And when you create those kind of laws and you adopt them, our culture, we're not individualistic, we're people that was with the solidarity. That's how we relate. So if you just take those things and you just put them in, copy and paste, then you find that it does not translate. The people that you're supposed to be helping, or the people that this technology is supposed to enhance, they're not, thank you,
On a lighter note, something just came to mind. I just remembered a joke that someone made years ago when the whole conversation around self-driving cars came up, Elon Musk, and someone said, self-driving cars can only work very well in developed countries. That if you bring a self-driving car and put it on Lagos traffic, only God knows what will happen. The AI that powers that car will run mad. Maybe it will even wind down the glasses and start cursing people. Yeah, so it's important that we make sure that these policies are things that address our Nigerian situation. Yeah, Chinonso?
I want to just say something to this regional and collaboration issue. It's something that we must embrace wholeheartedly. I was in a training, an online virtual training, and it was, I think the professor was from from Cambridge, and he was taking us on artificial intelligence, basic knowledge on artificial intelligence. And he made a statement, and the thing struck to me personally. And he was like, why will you be using applications, drones, robotics that are trained outside Nigeria or outside Africa? You guys have all the potentials you need to do it here. And then when I go to some websites and I see copy and paste privacy policies, some things I see there, I'll say, and actually, sorry, it's not actually privacy policy, it's privacy notice. Policy is the one that is regulating. Privacy policy is for you and your business, like internal. The one you share to your customers or to people that use your services is called privacy notice. And I see big companies post on their website, privacy policy. And then when you go through the privacy policy, you see that it's a copy and paste. It does not in any way align with the NDPA, Nigerian Data Protection Act. And believe you me, even though we are data protection lawyers, we are still advocating to the NDPC, which is the commission that guards data protection. We are still advocating to them that, see, we have to make it more Nigerian than ever before. So please, the collaboration is needed. And I know that something is already going on because there's a convention that took place in 2014 from African countries came together. It's called the Malabo Convention. And as I'm speaking to you right now, so many African countries have refused to sign it in as a treaty. So they are still dragging their feet on the ground. And it's killing us. Because if we can actually have a general treaty for all of us, and then we have some exception when it has to do with the peculiarities of each country, believe you me, we will go far. And we will do it in a way that it will just be for us. We don't need to copy from the Europeans. We don't need to copy from the US. We can actually build our own. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to come to you, Titi, and I'm going to be talking, so I'm going to ask you questions around legal tech. I dare say that as far as the infusion of law and practice, of tech and justice delivery system is concerned, Rivers State is leading the country as far as that is concerned. So I think we should all put our hands together for Rivers State. And I will explain why. Rivers State is the first, so the Rivers State Judiciary, let me not say Rivers State, the Rivers State Judiciary is the first judiciary in the country to build and sustain a fully online filing system. Fully online. Fully online. And it's called the Reef Commerce Platform. And what it does is that it essentially creates an opportunity for you to file cases, institute actions from the comfort of your room with your mobile phone. Totally paperless. Totally eliminating the need for filing clerks, totally eliminating the need to tip somebody, right? And at the same time, raising significant fund for the government because the system is powered and there's a payment gateway company at the back end, and there are payment gateway charges for that. So it's also increasing revenue that it would ordinarily not have been able to raise. It's also minimizing corruption, right? So I think it's a very important innovation. Now my question is, how can, I've just given an example of one legal tech solution, right? And I know there are quite a couple of them. So how can legal tech solutions increase improved access to justice, efficiency, and transparency within our African judicial system? Because I trust that a lot of people in this room, nobody likes going to court. Does anybody here like going to court? Even me as a lawyer, I don't like going to court. You understand? if I had a personal matter, I would not take it to court. But I don't mind if you take yours to court and pay me. Sure, I don't mind, right? And the reasons are not far-fetched. Delays, undue adjournments. Today the court will not sit. Tomorrow the judge is sick. The next day you come to court, the judge says he cannot find the case file. And just a lot of crazy things. So how do you think legal tech solutions can improve our access to justice so that we can regain our confidence in justice delivery?
Thank you for that question. So I think we're already doing that, actually. So like you just gave the example of River State government, the River State judicial system. It's, and let me just say this first. I agree with you because we're in Port Harcourt, but don't let the Lagos lawyers hear you say that, okay? So here's the thing,
I will say it, I'm not afraid of them.
So, legal tech is really helping us. It's definitely adding to transparency. It's helping us, like you said, you're from your home, you can file anything. From the village, you can file anything, and you don't have to go to this office, push this here. It makes it faster, And then now we even have platforms that are coming up with online dispute resolution platforms. These are like places where we can both decide that, we don't want to go to court and spend, all that money on big lawyer like you, and stay for years just fighting each other and showing that we have muscle. Both of us can come on this platform. The fees are not so much. We submit our matter and, an arbitrator will come together and settle us, and we are bound by it. These are things, technologies that are coming up every day. You have platforms, like Law Paddy. There's so many of them where you can get legal advice without having to go and pay a big-time lawyer. There's so many of them. And the thing about this is that why we have to embrace them is that they will make the process faster. They will save money. It's not everybody. A lot of people in Nigeria, we have that whole thing of just leave it for God. It's because you cannot afford a lawyer. Because when you calculate how much you lost and how much it will cost you to fight this, you're just like, okay, leave it for God. But these platforms that are coming up now, these technologies are allowing us to be able to stand up for our rights, to be able to say, you know what, this happened and it's not right. Okay, this is a cheaper option on how I can get the law to enforce my rights.
So that's basically moving towards online dispute resolution, mediation, embracing arbitration, and other forms of alternative dispute resolution.
Yes.
All right. Chinonso, you want to say something?
Yes. I want to just throw more light to what Titi has said. 3 months ago, I was amongst a hackathon, justice hackathon, and the major thing we were asked to do was how technology can be able to help the justice system. And we looked at the rural areas, places where they are more of illiterate than literate. And you don't have, because we had challenges of light, no better service, like in terms of network and the rest. And then one suggestion that struck my mind, I know one of the panelists has said something like that in other tech, I think it's either agri-tech or something. No, not agri-tech, sorry, it was yesterday. And we talked about offline, how we can build apps that can allow people have access to justice offline. And we made that proposal. I think the hackathon is still ongoing right now in Lagos. I believe that by the end of next month or thereabout, the results will be out. And then another thing also that technology can also help. We as lawyers, we have what we do about case laws, because we practice a stare decisis system in Nigeria, where we make reference to judgments of the higher courts and the rest. And there's somebody that had produced something that is helpful, because I've worked for a judge. I know how hectic it is to be able to summarize cases, especially when you have to look at that of the defendant, the claimant, and the rest, and then you now arrive at a judgment. And then Law Pavilion came, where you can be able to search for cases, like you just type what you're looking for, and it pops up. And then they brought a new innovation that was earlier last year, where they now impute ChatGPT, that's AI, into their system, where you can just ask the AI, okay, I'm looking for a law or a case law relating to murder. And it will bring, and you can even choose the court. You can say, I need a judgment of the Supreme Court. I need a judgment of the Court of Appeal on this particular principle of law. And everything will just come out. So tech is doing a lot in the justice system, but we still need more solutions. We still need more solutions. Like this offline I'm talking about now is just the one we just happened to say, okay, fine. We are enjoying it here in the urban area. What of in the rural area? What are we actually doing for them? How can they be able to know their rights and reach out to us? Then we also saw something that happened it's what happened in the UK, where we have an automated court. Like from the processing to the justice to the judgment, everything is automated. Believe you me, if we can do such here in Nigeria, it will be very good. And not just doing such here in Nigeria, but doing it with our own case laws, with our own laws. Make it as simple and as easy that even a market woman on the road can be able to access justice. And that's what tech can do for us. And I believe that there's people here that are hearing me, software developers, people that are into tech. You can think of something that will help the justice system move faster. Thank you.
And if I will add, the founder of Law Pavilion. So Law Pavilion is a legal tech company doing massive stuff in Nigeria. The founder of Law Pavilion is not a lawyer. And even the Reef Comics app that we have, I think it was set up by Sinforest. And the MD of Sinforest is not a lawyer as well. So by all means, we are open to collaboration from non-lawyers as well in the space.
If I could add something to that.
Yeah.
We also, the thing is, I think part of the challenge we have is because our how would I put it now? Our industry is a bit conservative.
Very
we already
conservative.
have virtual. I did a virtual hearing just a few months ago, and we had a witness that was in London. And because the laws we already have in place allow us to do this now, but because of the people are so conservative, they don't want things to change. They think, AI is going to come out. AI cannot replace a lawyer, but it can help us.
It's so conservative that we are still wearing wigs and gowns till now. And
you
sometimes
have to embrace that.
I've had to, I have to say it because I've suffered in this thing. I've had the privilege of practicing in several states, visiting several courts across the country, and I've had terrible experiences. There are some courts that there's no bulb, not to talk of fan, and the judge will insist that inside that heat you still wear wig. You're wearing shirts and jackets, then you now wear gown on top and still put wig on top of your head. So like the conservative nature is so choking, but I think it's something we can do. So I have one final question for you, Princess. I know that we're pressed for time. I don't even know if we have any time left. Do we have any time left? Okay. 2 minutes. Thank you very much. So I have a question for you. We're having a blockchain and fintech session after. And this is a very disruptive technology, right? So you're the experts in this. You're the expert in Web3, artificial intelligence, and the like. What are the key considerations for regulating digital currencies and decentralized finance in a way that fosters innovation whilst mitigating the risk in our African economies?
Thank you. So I can think of 3 things that will go hand in hand. Financial inclusion, anti-money laundering, and consumer protection. They have to go hand in hand because whilst we want to carry everybody along, my Leonard colleague talked about, going offline to the marketplaces. These laws don't matter if people are not using them. They don't matter if people do not understand how to use these currencies, what this currency is even about, how to protect themselves. I keep talking about the risk on my LinkedIn every day. We need to know what the issues are so that we can resolve them. But because we are now saying we want to carry everybody along, bad guys exist too. Some people want to use it for fraud. Some people want to use it to hide money, claim money, all the English that we used to speak. We have to create laws that also protect or predict those problems, right? And then there's the consumer protection, you and I, that are just using these facilities and are trying to integrate with these systems. There has to be laws that also protect us, the consumers. And I also think that another way that we can look at regulation is to make it two-tiered. So for startups, because we want to encourage people to come up, do these things, build an app. We are the ones sitting out here pleading to our software engineers to come up with solutions for the law tech, right? For legal tech. We want to include people. We want more people to try things. So we definitely want a situation where the laws are not so stringent on these people, right? Not that it is not, it's too soft, the laws are too soft too, but enough to encourage participation. But on the other hand, remember I said two-tiered, on the other hand, for the bigger corporations, for the big players, we need stronger laws that can police a lot of things, right? Even down to environmentals. What are they using to create these apps? What are they using to create, how are they running these systems? Is anyone looking out for the environmental hazards and stuff like that? So we need softer laws for startups, stronger laws for the big players. And then I will say it every time, collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. Without collaboration, we are going to be crawling to where we are trying to get to. So we need to have collaboration across border, continental, international, and all of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So since we've come to the end of the session, can we just have, in 10 seconds, final words from all the panelists?
Okay, I'll say for every startup owner or startup founder or anyone that has a tech company or you know that your company uses data, please, it is necessary that you get a data protection officer. A data protection officer is not a cybersecurity expert. There are two different offices. Let your company get a staff, maybe an already existing staff, or employ someone that has been licensed as a data protection officer. And then one last thing I'll say is, I am a product of this expo, this Port Harcourt Tech Expo. I was here last year as a volunteer. I was a lawyer already, I was working for startups, but I came in as a volunteer. And the reason why I came in as a volunteer was because I wanted to see what happens at the backstage. So for every volunteer out there, one day you can sit up stage here like me. So please do your job well. Thank you.
Any last words, Titi?
I'm going to go with Haz. So last year, I actually was an exhibitor here. My firm came in and we spoke with a lot of startups. And, a lot of them had questions. How do we get this off the ground? How do we get this rolling? And one thing I want to say to you is that I know that the road might seem tough now, but when you're starting, start right. Get a law firm. If you can't, there are lots of law firms. My law firm, we help startups pro bono. We're going to stand by you. We will help you through the process, get you set up on the right regulations, make sure that you're protected. Of course, when you start making money, you pay us. But, for a startup, we're with you. And there are lots of law firms in Port Harcourt, in Lagos, in Abuja that do that as well, that are, know how to protect you and are willing to give their time to look out for you. So don't just sit back and say, I don't have money, and then you do the wrong things and you get into trouble. And thank you so much for the organizers, or rather to the organizers of this exhibition, for giving us this opportunity to speak to you. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Titi. Unlike you, I will not do pro bono. Please pay me for my work. So I'm willing to advise you for a fee.
I've been around for some time, so
you see?
I can afford it.
Exactly. You can afford to do pro bono. I can't. Thank you. Any last words, Princess?
Last words sounds very last words. Okay, everyone, I'll just stay in team with my colleagues here and say that I don't know is not an excuse. Putting myself on the spot by saying that as of last year, all I knew was corporate law. Early last year, corporate law was all I was doing. And then I found out about Web3. And I'm like, this is where the world is going to. So I don't know is not an excuse. And I say this for both our sakes, for all of us. Because when the risk happen, when these things happen, nobody will say, there's knowledge everywhere, free information on YouTube. You don't have to know you don't have to code, you don't have to know just learn the basics, understand what this digital world is about. Speak to your lawyers, speak to your tech bros, speak to the people around you. Position yourself, your business, your company, your trade, position yourself so that, except you are not building for the future. But if you are building for the future, you need to learn what the world is about today. Thank you very much.